the hope be more effective and a lot better tolerated, a lot more safe for the patients.
People ask me how I keep a smile on my face. It's easy when you have so many great people that take care of you and support you.
To find out how you can be a part of a child's cancer journey and a part of the cure, visit childrenscancer.org. A public service message from Children's Cancer Research Fund.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to get at the show here to get your 2 cents in and your comments, and we'll be discussing a lot of things here today, expanding our focus slightly here today, as of course we are still having a lot of developing news coming out of Uvalde, Texas, and the shooting that happened at an elementary school there. We will be delving into that a bit today, as that is still a developing story, and we'll bring you updates from our news partners here and our regional news partners as well, and our news wires on that here. Not the stuff we usually get into, I know, but it's impossible to ignore today. We do have some further local discussion we will be having, both on Texas development here and in El Paso specifically, some more downtown redevelopment, but also challenges to continuing development of many things here. So we, of course, will be talking about some El Paso specific things here, as well as more of that action out of City Council that was developing during our show yesterday. So we weren't totally abandoning our purpose here today, but it is simply put impossible to ignore what is still developing out of there. As you heard in the top of the hour news, if you were listening here, a couple people chiming in already, John Hertz and John Brazelton. This is going to be a tough one. I'm just going to be perfectly honest with you. It's the kind of thing that I have dreaded the potential of talking about, and because it definitely hurts me personally, as I'm sure it does many people. But in essence, yes, Governor Greg Abbott now confirming that 15 have died after the shooting at the Robb Elementary School in the city of Uvalde, most commonly referred to as being west of San Antonio, about halfway between San Antonio and the nearest sector of the border there. Also noting that the gunman, who has been identified as an 18-year-old from Uvalde, has been was also killed in a shootout with police. Some of the details coming in as of this hour are that specifically that the shootout happened as police were chasing the suspect as he was running from police, after also being noted that he had shot his grandmother earlier in the day. The details of that are not totally clear. Again, a lot of details are still coming out about this, developing as of this moment. In fact, it was as of this hour that information about another fatality related to this did come out. But the one detail that is really developing here, and I'm not seeing much elsewhere, but it's coming out directly from our news partners and on our news wires, is that this was not, so to speak, a targeted attack, but rather a chase that then ended in the school, and then the horrific events continued to unfold there, that he ran into the school after a chase with police, where he was then shot and killed by police. Also understanding that there were many injuries, reports coming in from regional hospitals there, up to 15 or more were injured as well, and including 2 of the police officers responding to the situation. So we will, of course, be checking in on this as more details come out, because there is still plenty coming out, and we'll be bringing you more of the response here. As of this hour, we also do have response coming out from regional and local elected officials and lawmakers here. Of course, Texas Governor Greg Abbott's statement on the matter here, most recently saying, and one he emailed out to our office as well, Texans across the state are grieving for the victims of this senseless crime and for the community of Uvalde. Cecilia and I mourn this horrific loss, and we urge all Texans to come together to show our unwavering support to all those who are suffering. We thank the courageous first responders who worked to finally secure Robb Elementary School. I've instructed the Texas Department of Public Safety and the Texas Rangers to work with local law enforcement to fully investigate the crime. The Texas Division of Emergency Management is charged with providing local officials of all resources necessary to respond to this tragedy as the state of Texas works to ensure the community has what it needs. Kelvin Williams saying that there was no chase here. Again, developing details here. That's the information coming into our newsroom as of this hour. But again, I fully expect that details will continue to will continue to develop here. So more details as they do come in, of course, here. But continuing on with then the response from local lawmakers here. El Paso Congresswoman Veronica Escobar saying, "My heart breaks for the community of Uvalde. I'm so deeply saddened that this has happened again. No child should have to experience this. No parent or teacher should live in fear." Tony Gonzalez, representing the Texas 23rd Congressional District, of course, stretching from El Paso's eastern part of the county to this area, and I do believe including this area, saying, "As we learn more of details of today's events in Uvalde, I am heartbroken for our South Texas community. It is devastating when our innocent children become victims of senseless violence. We are devastated." And some more of our regional lawmakers as well. Cesar Blanco, state senator, saying, "Thinking and praying for Uvalde," and more response coming in here as well. You can find a lot more response going on over on with our news partners over at KFOX 14, among other things here. So all I have to say on this, and we will, of course, have further discussion on this as we do on this program, but all I have to say at this point is this, that yes, senseless, stupid, evil, there are a lot of adjectives that can be applied to such a situation here. Yeah, and Maria Coleman saying something I definitely find myself agreeing with at this time. A time like this, keep politics out of the equation. Please keep the parents and, of course, children in your prayers. God bless them. Calvin Williams saying that at this point there is video of him casually walking into the school here. I will say I do see shades of previous such incidents in the way this unfolded here. I will agree with, but my thoughts are in general. I know a lot of the conversation, and has already been mentioned by some and others that I am not quoting here, pointing out, well, let's just say political goals here. I think there's a time and place for that level of discussion, but at this point, with the details still coming out, does not feel very relevant at this point in time. What I will say is I don't spend a whole lot of time in elementary schools, not having anyone in my immediate life of that age, been few and far between. But I will say is that whenever these come up, I am reminded of the time that I went specifically to in the Canutillo Independent School District, their newer school. Blanking on the name at the moment here. I'm sure I'll find it here in just a second. Because their newer elementary school actually has a pretty good layout. Something that is more or less, I think, and this is an awful way to think about it, geared toward this kind of thing, or at the very least would be well suited to dealing with this kind of a thing because of the way it is, again, set up, able to be worked at, and the security involved with it. I know a lot of conversation is going to be had about, well, what exactly happened, who's to blame here, that kind of thing. But really, I think that we need to worry about how we treat those that are the most important to us. Reyes Elementary School. So Reyes Elementary School is the one that I'm thinking about there, because it has, well, essentially hardened is the way I think about it. And I know that's not much comfort to those that are still dealing with this, is why I don't want to delve into it too far. But, and Ed Clore saying, been to Uvalde many times as a kid, had a deer lease near there in Hondo as well. But if we really want to consider the way we deal with kids, the fact that, some reports coming in about casually strolling into the building is terrific, absolutely. And the idea that that could even be possible is almost nonsensical at this point in time and the way we live in America right now. So we will have more response and all of that coming up after this first break here. And Kelvin Williams correctly saying 14 children and 1 teacher, the current toll coming out again of Uvalde, Texas at the Robb Elementary School there. We'll have more on that as more details come in. Otherwise, we will, of course, be continuing with our show as otherwise usual today. And, of course, the gunman, yes, being brought up there. We will be good. As more details come in, we'll bring them to you. But otherwise, we will be continuing with our show as otherwise usual today, talking about the situations that do affect us here in the borderland, including downtown redevelopment, among others. So we're going to go ahead and take that first break of the hour here right now. Coming out of this break, again, getting into some more of our more usual topics here, including downtown redevelopment, the challenges for continued development in the borderland and the region as a whole, and a whole lot more. So stay tuned. And of course, Election Day. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A couple of crashes on your El Paso freeways, right lane and the entrance ramp, both blocked by a crash on the I-10 eastbound at Giles Road exit. There's a backup to Viscount. Expect delays. I-10 westbound at Mesa, a stalled vehicle is blocking 2 lanes there. I-10 westbound at Don Haskins Drive, an injury accident, and a crash reported South Desert Boulevard southbound at eastbound Artcraft. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
Did you know that were it not for a smallpox outbreak in a Continental Army camp during the Revolutionary War, Canada may never have existed? Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
What's all the buzz about cleaning your nose, nasal hygiene, and navage? The science is simple. Your nose is the body's air filter for trapping allergens and viruses, but it's not perfect. Like washing your hands and brushing your teeth, it's time to start cleaning your nose too. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the back of the nose where most allergens and viruses multiply, then flushes them out the other nostril before they reach your lungs. My name's Martin Hoke, and I didn't invent nasal irrigation. It's been around thousands of years. I did invent Navage to make it easy for everyone. In less than 30 seconds, you can clean your nose. And because it's all natural and drug-free, it's safe to use Navage every single day. Are you ready to join nearly 3 million people who use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier? At Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
On the new true crime podcast Betrayal, a woman chronicles her fairy tale romance gone horribly wrong. Her husband's secret life destroyed their marriage, shook their community, and ultimately sent him to prison.
Going through Spence's emails, Snapchat, whatever I could get my hands on. Just a punch in the gut every single time.
Listen to Betrayal on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. Brought to you by DuckDuckGo. Search, browse, and email privately, all for free with the DuckDuckGo app.
You know, every 3 seconds, there is a new victim of identity theft. A criminal could be applying for loans in your name, selling your personal information on the dark web. Now, protecting your identity can be very easy thanks to LifeLock by Norton. No one company can prevent all identity theft or monitor every transaction of every business, but LifeLock, it's simple and easy to protect yourself, and you'll save up to 25% off your first year when you go to LifeLock.com or call 1-800-LifeLock. Just use the promo code Hannity.
Weather and traffic info. You need it? We have it. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed. News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Again, still following the developing information still coming out of Uvalde, Texas. Some details coming into our newsroom here and from our news partners, some differences, but the one thing I will caution is we'll report what we are getting handed here from our news partners and those reporting on the ground there, but oftentimes it does take time for the exact details to come out here, so that situation still, of course, developing here, and we'll bring you the latest as we do have it. Calvin Williams saying, haven't seen the number of children in the emergency room. There are a number of reports we're also following from, again, news partners here and reputable sources on at least 2 in critical condition, including 1 student and 1 teacher. But again, this is still very much developing, so we'll bring you more as we have it confirmed as well. RJ saying Buffalo Walmart, heartbreaking, but when you shatter a child's incident and sense of safety, that rips my heart. I think a sentiment shared by many here today as well. So I know that there are political implications that are probably going to come up about this, and I find myself, I'll also say, very uninterested at this point in time in getting further into that here. So we'll have response going on, but this is a tough one. Anyway, continuing with our show as otherwise usual. Again, as more details come in, we'll check in on that. But when it comes to El Paso, we're still looking at a couple of interesting things going on when it comes to continued downtown developments, a story that we've been following for a while now. Another investor now been tapped to restore One Texas Tower in downtown El Paso into a Hampton Inn and Suites hotel. You may be somewhat familiar with this building. It's going to be the one that's right next to the revamped Plaza Hotel in downtown, and specifically there has now been a vote by El Paso City Council today to approve the renovation of the One Texas Tower. That would be approximately a $2.1 million performance-based incentive funded through the provision of rebates on new tax revenue created by the developer's investment. So that would be more than a little bit of it. Also, there will be some rebates coming from the state potentially there as well. So the city part of it is primarily a construction tax rebate, property tax rebate, and hotel occupancy tax rebate as well. And this will be El Paso lawyer Jim Scher will be requiring to make an $18 million investment. Now, to not make this any conflation, this is a different one than the Crest that had previously talked about. That's on the other side of the street here. So we are looking at a lot of interest and movement on continued downtown redevelopment on all these fronts here. That has been one that had been otherwise, people may, if you've been downtown around the area, might be more familiar with it as the building that houses Cafe Central as one of the major parts that's been active in that building. Not terrifically aware of what else has actually been going on there, I will be perfectly honest here, because, well, it had been largely not being used except at ground level, as, well, a lot of downtown buildings have been for a while now. So this vote, I'm assuming that there will also be further investments coming in from probably the county side of things. I mean, adaptive reuse has been something that the county has been focused on for, well, quite some time. So it's interesting that we're still seeing this movement despite other concerns that are going on, and the level of investment here I find to be important and significant because, well, these are some similar types of projects here, even if in different ways. This one, again, would be an Hampton Inns and Suites hotel, so increasing the hotel occupancy of downtown, something that has come up with some of the recent conventions that have been brought here, and particularly in reference to that previous one that had been discussed of the bowling convention. Here we, of course, have the state Democrat convention that is slated to come in 2024. This would not be up in time for that because the timeline on this, at least according to the presentation made to City Council here, would be the end of 2025. And Cafe Central will remain, if you were at all concerned about that. The city also pointing out that there are a number of different redevelopments going on. Of course, I'm mentioning the Children's Museum, the Paso del Norte Hotel, San Jacinto Plaza, the Martin Building, and the Plaza Hotel. So making this a focus for downtown redevelopment. But then on the flip side of that, there is some, well, issues going on with new builds going on in town. Over from El Paso Inc. out of actually previous weeks, but it's taken a minute to get to it. There have been concerns about being able to get new buildings onto the grid, essentially. Now, this might not necessarily affect redevelopment, considering that's what's going on here, but if there's new equipment, upgrades, if stuff hasn't been used as much or needs additional capacity assuming the building was vacant for the moment here until proven otherwise, it might need a whole lot more capacity to fully operate as a hotel and have it all functioning. At the very least, equipment that may have been there may be aged, may need upgraded, increased capacity, all that kind of things here. And so, again, according to El Paso Inc., the story out in recent weeks by Sarah Sanchez points out that it has been taking months for utility connections for El Paso builders and the other outskirts part more of the county here. And that's good. Citing El Paso Electric has been working on it, shortening the wait times to about 30 to 45 weeks out of nearly about a year for transformers. So we are talking slightly more infrastructure side of things and not just the individual connections, but it's still pretty much a problem here. And of course, it's not even limited to El Paso Electric, as is further pointed out here, that utilities across the country are having this issue. So when it comes down to the individual development issue, not clear if it'll affect this or any of the other projects that we've mentioned right now, but there's, of course, a strong possibility because, well, really, again, any level of redevelopment, I mean, some of the other projects that, of course, been mentioned and haven't fully moved forward yet, like the Caples buildings and others around that area, there's going to be a lot of work being done into it. Fully in support of that. My position has not changed on that particular issue because, well, if we want to get stuff happening downtown, we need to have the capacity for it to do so. And having street-level businesses and empty buildings on top of them isn't really the way to get to that. But then turning back those buildings, the Gateway Hotel being another one, actually having driven by that recently, actually with a hiring sign in the window, believe it or not here, which mildly surprised me. I was pleasantly surprised to see it, I will say. Maria Coleman asking what anyone know what happened to the 3 buildings purchased downtown. They were bought with COVID funding and initially stated as vaccination centers, but never utilized. That's another decent question here. To my understanding, still owned by the city, and I think they did move some of the administration into it. I know there was concern about essentially storage space and, well, when it comes to the vaccine specifically, refrigeration space. So I think they got used to some extent, but I'll agree with you that it hasn't been much said about that here. Honestly, it would be interesting to see if those could then be put forth into this redevelopment, but also as, well, ever since City Hall had to be split up, ever since the, well, destruction of it back, just coming up on just over 9 years ago now, if you think about if I got my time right here, after the blowing up of City Hall to turn it into what is, of course, now Southwest University Ballpark, where the Chihuahuas and Locomotive play. They had to split up all of those departments. I actually got the opportunity right before the demolition and right before everything left to completely go through most of City Hall. It wasn't necessarily an opportunity so much as we did it and kind of just asked permission as we went by or forgiveness if we didn't get it. I think that video is still up on YouTube. I need to try and find that actual video. I haven't thought about that in a few years because we literally just rolled through it, had a camera on a dolly cart essentially, and moved it through and took as much of the video of it as. I think a few thousand views last I saw up there. I'll have to dig up that link. Again, have not thought about that for a long time. But all of those, of course, departments had to scatter, and the capacity has been more than a little bit of an issue at certain points, including, of course, with the pandemic response. So that's an interesting question here. Calvin Williams saying that I believe if you invest in one building, you should only get your return from that building and from nowhere else. Interesting point to be made there. I guess if you want to clarify what you mean there, if you're trying to get other properties involved with it, or you're opposed to these tax incentives, if you want to clarify here, because it's, I think that is primarily based on that property, the incentives that have been put forth by the city, and I'm assuming that either already in place or probably shortly coming from the county, as well as it has been most of the components put forth on the public side of the public-private partnerships when we were talking about this downtown redevelopment. But again, getting back into the idea of there maybe being some infrastructure issues, again, waiting for utility hookups has been a major issue for home builders and developers, but then also just, well, the space and capacity to actually do the construction work. This has been an issue going on even since, well, frankly, before the pandemic. I further previously had gotten chances to go out to trainings and like couple weeks long, kind of expedited certifications going on for the construction industry. Because if you remember all the construction going on around here, we've got roads, we've got buildings. El Paso also has their crane watch that goes on. All of this takes, well, essentially personnel trained to do this work. You can't just kind of pull anyone off the street because particularly as you get like talking about structural, plumbing, electrical, you need to have people very well trained in it or anything involving the roadways. There was at least one incident involving TxDOT, I'm recalling, with that, not too far from our station over here, the access roads that were added, those kind of flying overpasses near, kind of, if you were going to extend the road south from the whole Montecillo development, it'll probably eventually connect through there, but they had to redo those. Now, they didn't totally say why those problems happened, but I would think that if we didn't have properly trained people, or more specifically, enough of them, that's the kind of problem that, well, that could result from it here. RJ saying that, seriously, who isn't hiring? Pilots are dying from the vax, and number of hours to be a pilot have been reduced here. Yeah, there's a lot of demand, and I know that some of the requirements even there are being lessened. Though, when it comes to air travel, that's one of the places that I'm least, maybe not least, but one of the ways I'm least willing to see standards being lowered, because yeah, I want to make sure that the person doing that knows what they're doing, and also from the airlines making them, the 737 MAX comes to mind here as well. So there's definitely a lot of demand, a lot of capacity, both being needed and to an extent being fulfilled. But I got to wonder about these major downtown redevelopment projects, if they're going to be impacted by this. Because sure, we are talking about basic connections, new setups, primarily with this El Paso Inc. article. But if we're talking about increased capacity being needed, affecting the base level infrastructure that they'll be pulling from, there could be, similar types of problem that could potentially, if not rectified, stymie this continued progress here. Because again, this is one of, one of several major projects that have been in the tens of millions of dollar range that have been announced in downtown with public-private partnerships, part of it, but primarily private driven, and then seeking incentives from local governments in order to further facilitate their process and projects. So I think that if this comes up, we're going to need to keep an eye on it, because if we're not able to then execute on these, we've got a little bit of momentum, I'm willing to say right now, and if not continued on, I don't want to think about what the alternative is going to be. That's going to take us through our next break right now. Coming out of this break, of course, we're going to be talking about elections, because we got going on that right now. And, of course, we'll be checking in on any of the latest updates from our news partners and more on the situations going on across the state here. So we're going to go ahead and take that break right now. Coming out of this break, again, a whole lot more talk about the things affecting us here in the borderland. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Comments over on the social media, opening up those phone lines a little bit later as we do. Again, all that coming up here after this break on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere. If you're wondering about dinner at this point in the day, you're, of course, right in time to think about it and wondering, okay, what can you throw together? What do you got? Something that I have found very useful for me and my family is being able to pull stuff just literally out of the fridge and the pantry, being well stocked enough, and you have to have good ingredients for that. And you can go a lot of ways, a lot of versatility with some very basic things. And one thing I make sure to keep on hand is, of course, the great variety of extra virgin olive oils, flavored olive oils, and balsamic vinegars from our friends over there at Enhanced Flavors. You can find them online at enhancedflavors.com. They'll also be further out in the community. They do visit the farmers markets, but also they'll be at the New Mexico Wine Fest happening up in Las Cruces at the State Fairgrounds in the coming weekend, of course, across Memorial Day weekend. Find them there, find their whole selection, because seeing it all out in front of you, laid out, and in one place, it's quite the experience, because you can also try the samples of it as well. Again, the one I picked up most recently was a jalapeno lime, white balsamic vinegar, great stuff, perfect for marinades. We're getting ready to open up that grill, and I'm looking forward to using it on there. But in just, even basic things, stuff that doesn't, as things get hot, you don't want to cook inside, bruschetta, other very basic kind of stuff. Again, just having good quality ingredients can make, one heck of a difference here. So find them online, enhancedflavors.com. That's enhanced with a D, flavors.com.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update. It's primary day here in Texas. Across the state, the two big races to watch are for Lieutenant Governor and Attorney General. But here at home, Commissioner Precincts 2 and 4 are on the ballot. In the race for Precinct 2, which encompasses parts of Central and South Central El Paso, incumbent Commissioner David Stout is facing off against Judy Gutierrez. During the March election, Stout received about 43% of the vote, with Gutierrez trailing right behind at just under 40%. Both candidates say one of their main priorities is to be efficient with taxpayer dollars. The other race we are keeping a close eye on is Commissioner Precinct 4. Democratic County Commissioner Carl Robinson is facing a challenge from Sergio Coronado. Blanca Trout and David Adams are the two Republicans in that race. The winners of each will face off in the November election. Polling sites will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And for a list of voting locations, you can visit cbs4local.com.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 eastbound at Giles, that earlier crash that was blocking the entrance ramp and right lane. Entrance ramp is back open, but the right lane is still partially blocked. I-10 eastbound at Giles Road, and you've got a backup. Border Highway eastbound at Padres, a stalled semi is blocking the right shoulder. Dyer, just below Trans Mountain, just south of Trans Mountain, an accident reported. Injury accident at Wrestler, southbound after Helen of Troy. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. After a windy day, we can expect a windy evening to give way eventually to light winds overnight. Now, we are expecting to have temperatures similar again for your day on Wednesday, but with lighter winds as high pressure begins to build in. But on the flip side, as that high pressure gets closer to us come this weekend, we can also expect soaring temperatures and the return of triple digits with more winds to come.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
Did you know that were it not for a smallpox outbreak in a Continental Army camp during the Revolutionary War, Canada may never have existed? Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Are you wondering if the COVID vaccine is right for your child? If you can trust it. My name is Dr. Moira Salaji. I'm the president of the American Academy of Pediatrics. And we want you to know it's important for all children 5 and over to get a COVID vaccine, because we know millions of cases of COVID have been in kids. You can trust the COVID vaccine for yourself and for your kids. I do.
We can do this. Find a vaccine near you at vaccines.gov, paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Talk El Paso, bringing you the big stories and impacts on the borderland every weekday at 4. Brought to you in part by Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon, official hair and beard sponsor of the show. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Did you know that were it not for a smallpox outbreak in a Continental Army camp during the Revolutionary War, Canada may never have existed? Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
Opiates has taken everything and everyone I've ever loved away from me. Everything.
I blew my ankle out and I got prescribed pain pills by my doctor.
If making my detox public is going to help somebody, I'm all for it. I just wish I would have had a warning.
Opioid dependence can happen after just 5 days. Know the truth, spread the truth. A message from Truth, the Ad Council, and ONDCP.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the social media page here. And a whole lot of comments coming in over on those social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk is the place you can find us there. A lot of people chiming in: Maria Coleman, RJ, Calvin Williams, Andrew Zignorant, John Brazelton, Monica Cervantes, Louis Pinato, Flaco Jimenez, Ed Clore, John Hertz, and more tuning in, chiming in over there. Also dropping those reacts. We do appreciate Calvin Williams, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, and Flaco Jimenez over on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It just helps with all of those algorithmic things that, well, help us do the show and continue our mission to talk about all the things affecting us here in the borderland and having live local talk radio here on the airwaves. So we do appreciate those that do that. If you want to give us a like, give us a share, it is definitely a part of it here. And now we all have a lot more information coming out again about that situation coming out of Valde. We'll check in on that here with the latest top of the next hour as well. But, of course, want to mention that it is, of course, primary runoff election day today. And the things that you need to remember about El Paso, if you haven't made your way to the ballot box lately, in which case we're going to have some words. But in general, it's easier than it used to be. As long as you've got your ID, you're a registered voter here in El Paso, you can go to any of the election places in El Paso County. So if you see an I vote here sign, you can go there and sign up. I'm mildly enthused today. Maybe I just picked the right time, but I actually had to wait in a little bit of a line. Like, yeah, it was 2 people, but still, that has not happened recently. So I was mildly enthused about that. Parking lot where I was seemed to be full. Now, whether it was people actually working at the location, was a fire station, and thanks to the staff there, had a nice chat with them. But I hope that we can see, well, I just want to hit 5%. Let's keep it really, really low here now. So, yeah, that's an important one. And, of course, just some of the races that are on the ballot here. The primary one that we focused on here, of course, with that El Paso County Commissioner Precinct 4 race, we, of course, had all the candidates on from both sides of the ballot here. Just as a simple reminder, if you voted Republican in the primary initially, you have to stick with Republican this time around. Same with Democrat, got to stick with it if you didn't vote in the initial primary. Again, we'll have some words later, hopefully as friends, but I don't see how worked up I get. But you can vote in either if you are in that situation. No write-ins, so keep that plan, all of that. Kevin, I'm saying I was waiting in line to vote, things you never expect to hear in El Paso. Again, pleasantly surprised, even if it threw off my schedule a little bit. I guess I just had it ingrained in my mind that, I'm just going to breeze in there, go through, finish voting here. RJ saying, line? What is this line you speak of? I don't know. That doesn't make sense when you're talking about voting. Again, usually not. And to be fair, it was like 2-3 people. Basically, the people up at the table, there were 2 already being having their form filled out and ballot created by the staff and the election staff up at the table, and at least one guy then I was behind. I think there may have been one other guy that was confused and needed to ask a question as well. So 2-3 people in line, including myself, but not something that has usually happened around here. So I'm mildly enthused, even if I don't exactly expect this to be a gangbuster turnout. I'll take anything. Again, would love to hit double digits. I am not going to hold my breath on that. But so just as a reminder, in case you are wondering, some of the specific and major local races, of course, that are on this ballot, we do have those El Paso County Commissioners on the ballot, both for Districts 4, Precinct, rather, is what we call on the county side of things. We have Precinct 2 and Precinct 4. Precinct 4 is the, more competitive race, which is why we focus on that heavily. But, of course, we do have Commissioner David Stout also on the ballot, facing a Democrat challenger there. And you got to remember here, is a former city staffer Judy Gutierrez is noted by El Paso Matters, because neither managed to get to that 50% plus one threshold, so they're going to the runoff. And in that case, the Democrat, this will effectively be the election, unless there is a significant independent challenger write-in that case, if you want to go for it towards November. But unlike what is going on with, previous guests we've had on the show here when it comes to the actual county judge, in which, no, there was no primary challenger, no other party challenger. There was, of course, that independent campaign, Guadalupe Hiner, who we've talked with previously, looking to get into that race. But we'll get into a little bit further on all those details once we get out of this election. And in case anyone was confused, because I've actually heard this a couple of times when I tell people in my life, don't forget to go vote. They'll be like, wait, we just voted. What do you mean? I did vote. What do you mean there's more voting? Yes, this is another vote. I would expect everyone who regularly listens to this program to know that and to be pretty sure about it. But it is another vote. Why we didn't combine these, I'm not in charge of these matters. Otherwise, it would have been, because, good Lord, election fatigue. We're already dealing with this. RJ calling me either optimist or grandly deluded here. Couple one saying, if I was late, I bet the boss didn't believe my excuse here. Yeah, it starts feeling like a little bit of an idea of, the dog ate my homework. Oh, no, I was in line to vote here. Being like, gonna call him bull on that. There's no lines to vote here. What are you talking about? John Brosnan accurately pointing out, probably have to wait 3 days to count all the mail-in ballots. I mean, they are required here in Texas, of course, also reported on by El Paso Matters and others, that about 15% have been rejected so far, had to have been received by today. So it still takes days because there's other processes, finalization, but I would fully expect that in short order by this evening, we will probably have a clear idea of at least the local races, even if some of those statewide ones, because I was just mentioning some of the local races, but of course, we've had other guests on this program, including George P. Bush, current Texas Land Commissioner, and hoping to upgrade his position to be that of the state attorney general. Again, that interesting article from El Paso Inc., Bush, and in El Paso Inc. recently, but further from the New York Times, Bush dynasty pins hope on last stand in Texas for George P. Bush. And there's been a lot of conversation from you all out there about qualifications and benefits or not of the concept of political dynasties. So, I mean, vote as you see fit. Just make sure you go vote. Polls are open until 7 today. And if you are in line when the polls close, you have to be allowed to vote if there is a line. Again, it could happen. There's what is it? Old Angels in the Outfield movie, little kid. It could happen. Feels stupidly optimistic at times. But hey, it has happened to me. It could happen to you. It could happen. Just go vote. It'll still be pretty easy, and your vote locally anyway will have quite the impact. So just go vote. Any questions about where to do so, epcountyvotes.com. Even if you load it up on your mobile device, they can have a where to vote. You just put in your zip code. Don't even have to see exactly your address. Then they'll show you some of the closest ones for it. And again, you can vote at any of the election day voting centers. Don't have to go to a specific precinct, anything. Just as long as you're a registered voter and have your required ID, you're good to go. So just please go do it. Let's prove to people that we're actually paying attention out there. This, of course, sets up the November challenges and a whole lot more. But it was worthwhile to go and do it. I will formally and forever espouse here. So that's leading us to another someone saying, America not afraid to set up a government in another country and hold elections, can't count its own votes after an election. Again, we will have, I fully expect there to be an unofficial vote count coming out after this, but let's just say you don't necessarily want there to be immediate and speedy counting on this because it doesn't allow for any challenges, any refreshers, any further investigation into it. So yes, it will be probably decided in short order. I'm not really aware of any locally anyway that have taken much longer than that, but it does take a few days up to a week or so to actually get it fully finalized. We'll probably have a pretty clear picture by that tonight. We won't be on the air tonight for that, but we'll, of course, have some social media posts detailing what the results look like at certain points, and furthermore, get into all the results as they come in for you tomorrow on the program here. So we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll go ahead and open up those phone lines as we do during this point in the show. Usually, anyway, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Ed Clore letting us know that voted early, and I think I woke up the two guys in there that assisted me. Yeah, that sounds about right. That makes a level of sense. So at least you give them reason to be there that day. But again, we'll get into this on a whole lot more. And of course, your comments and calls coming out of this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Phone line open right now, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Comments online as well. Back after this break with more. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at Giles, that earlier crash that was blocking the entrance ramp and right lane. Entrance ramp is back open, but the right lane is still partially blocked. I-10 eastbound at Giles Road, and you've got a backup. Border Highway eastbound at Padres, a stalled semi is blocking the right shoulder. Dyer, just below Trans Mountain, just south of Trans Mountain, an accident reported. Injury accident at Wrestler, southbound after Helen of Troy. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
Did you know that were it not for a smallpox outbreak in a Continental Army camp during the Revolutionary War, Canada may never have existed? Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I always wanted to learn Spanish, but I never thought I'd have the time. Then I discovered Babbel. Me llamo Sean.
Babbel's lessons are fun. They only take like 10 or 15 minutes, and in 3 weeks, presto, you're speaking another language. Like magic.
I love that Babbel's lessons aren't just robots talking. They're voiced by native speakers, so you get the pronunciation just right. And they're designed by real language teachers, so you learn how to have real-world conversations, things you'll actually use.
3 weeks. It's incredible. After 3 weeks, I'm on vacation in Paris, having a conversation in French.
There's all kinds of ways to learn. Use Babbel's podcasts or games or videos. You can even join live classes with a language teacher.
If you want to learn a language, there's no faster, easier, better way than
Babbel.
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 Babbel. Évidemment.
Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today. For good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic, but if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer: regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is a leading cancer killer, but it can be prevented with regular screening starting at 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today. Visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
Did you know that were it not for a smallpox outbreak in a Continental Army camp during the Revolutionary War, Canada may never have existed? Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to chime in on the show. We have that phone line open right now. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. The number to call there. If you're calling in the middle of a segment, you might get put on a brief hold, but stick around there and we'll get to you in short order. You hear what's going on in the program here. We do, of course, also have the other ways to get at us, including that Talk Back feature over on the iHeartRadio app. Pop up the illustration we have of that here briefly. Again, if you're looking at it, when you find the 690 page within the app. So first step, make sure you got the iHeartRadio app in whatever app store, Google Play, Apple, whatever have you have. Go and find that. Just search iHeartRadio. Pretty simple. Letter I, H-E-A-R-T, radio. You'll be able to find it. RJ saying that when it comes to voting, let's agree to call it a line when there are 5 or more not at the table. Okay, so I was briefly delayed. Fine, if you're not wanting to call it a line then by your definition. Not strictly a line, but it was not the in and out experience. I mean, it took an extra few minutes, I guess, is really what it was. Don't worry, we weren't late for anything. It just delayed certain things. But yeah, again, with the iHeartRadio app, if you got it, this is what you'll see when you find, if you can see the picture over on our social media right now, you'll find us on there. There'll be a stop and play button up at the top of the page, and then a little red button with a microphone picture in it. You click on that, or tap on that, I guess, more accurately. You'll be able to leave us a message, and we'll be able to play it back on the show. So just let us know who you are, and then make your statement as kind of like a regular call-in, but a way to leave it digitally. And a little bit more simply, because of course we do still have that pound 250 feature, slightly more complicated. Call it from your cell phone. You dial pound 250, all 4 of those symbols, including the pound. Call it like a phone number. You'll be asked to say a keyword. Just say Talk El Paso, and you can leave us a message day or night. Both of those work that way, so just make it clear who you're leaving it for, and we're good that way. The other way it can show up in the app, depending on the screen that you're on, it can also end up looking like this, where the button you're looking for is a little bit closer at the bottom of the page here. Maria Coleman bringing up one other situation going on today that, kind of gotten backburnered here, saying that why was the plot to allegedly assassinate George W. Bush released on primary election day? This was known by the FBI intelligence for months. Unfortunately, there was a mass shooting in Texas. Yeah, and of course, we're keeping our eyes on the developments coming in on that here. Going on to say that the plot to assassinate George W. Bush highlights the lack of border security, plan to recruit 4 others to illegally cross the southern border. Another terrorist crossed, and he was released into the country. He was apprehended 2 weeks later, but how many have gotten away? I mean, a lot of these issues end up having similar backgrounds and conflations with it. And border security being a pretty key one in a lot of ways. I'm not surprised that this has a part of it. Of course, another story that is definitely at issue right now is, of course, what's going on when it comes to, the local response. You may have heard from some of those news reports from our news partners there at KFOX 14 about the city, again, approving some emergency funds and flexibility, essentially. A little bit more complicated than that, but that's the crux of the issue when it comes to this. Something else interesting, actually, from El Paso Matters. Title of their article out today, or late yesterday, I guess I should say. El Paso's migrant response shaped by concerns of Abbott reaction, mayor says, as reported on by City Ramirez. But Tell you what, we'll have to get into that here in the next hour because we're running short on time for this one. Don't worry, we got another hour of Talk El Paso on tap here. And again, if you want to call in during the show, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Had a couple pop up there, but if we're having issues with the phone lines, let us know. Should be working today. So again, the number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. And Catherine Cordry pointing out that accurately in this whole developing situation, of course, coming out of Uvalde, Texas, that legal age to purchase a handgun in Texas is 21. Whomever provided the gun is also guilty for the killings here. Again, more developing information coming out even as of this hour right now. And we'll be bringing you the latest, particularly at the top of the next hour here, including on our top of the hour news updates and the bottom of the hour. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, again, due for that break right now. So again, if you want to call in, we'll queue you up for the top of the next hour, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Get into that and a whole lot more. And a lot more comments as well. Again, if you're chiming in over on the social media, we'll get to those comments. Kathy Cordry, Maria Coleman, RJ, Calvin Williams, Ed Clore, John Brazelton, and more tuning in, chiming in over there, along with Calvin Williams, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, and Flaco Jimenez over and dropping the likes here. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso after this break. You're on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
That earlier crash on I-10 eastbound at Giles Road that was causing a backup earlier this afternoon. All lanes are back open there. But on the west side of I-10 at McRae, right across the freeway, there a disabled truck. A semi is blocking the right shoulder. 54 Patriot northbound at McCombs, a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. And an accident reported Altura eastbound at the 54 Patriot. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa here, General Manager of Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Once again, we were El Paso's #1 dealer in Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram sales in April. Thank you, El Paso and surrounding areas.
The Memorial Day sales event starts now at Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. And there's never been a better time to get more for your old car, truck, or SUV. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, we want it. So you can save big on every new and certified pre-owned vehicle in our huge inventory. 2022 Ram 1500 trucks with 0 APR for 60 months. All new 2022 Jeep Wagoneer full-size SUV with third row seating. 0 APR for 60 months. 0 payments for 90 days. Plus, we have aggressive lenders with great rates and terms, even if your credit is less than perfect. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Where buying a car is fun. At I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APR is $16.67 per thousand finance on select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Developed and used by cultures in forested areas, drums served as an early form of communication. Due to the highly ambiguous nature of these rhythms, misinterpretations often occurred, resulting in violence. Thankfully, when we bang the drum now, we're a bit more civilized. Can you hear me now? A bit. We have to hit them hard for this. Beat out your frustrations on our drum.
Do not stop banging that drum.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Okay, forest animals, today is a new day. Kids are coming to the forest, and it's up to us to make their visit a good one. Sparrow.
Yes?
Have you practiced the most popular bird songs for the year?
Of course.
Catchy. I like it. Okay, River.
Dude.
How's the temperature?
It's a refreshing 52 degrees, man. Perfect for a little riverside shoeless relaxation.
Ah, good. Owl, you here? Course. Who's asking? I am. Look, you know the drill. Sleep during the day, scare the kids at night. Perfect. I love my job. Oak Tree?
Sup?
Still in the same place I left you last year. That's what I like. Consistency.
Well, it's not like I'm going anywhere for the next couple hundred years.
I know. I love it. Turtle.
He's not here yet, man.
He's late every morning. You'd think you would have learned by now to leave the night before our meetings. Okay. Squirrel. Has anybody seen Mr. Squirrel?
The forest has been preparing just for you. Visit a forest near you today. To learn more about cool things to do in the forest, visit discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Weather and traffic info. You need it? We have it. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod. Noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
No Hollywood release can match it.
It's worth
the white. Who complains?
No television drama can equal it.
That was the scariest episode of your show.
And nothing else comes close to the drama.
This is unbelievable.
And you know what? Quite frankly, this scares people.
Join the conversation. We have seen this movie before. We know that it doesn't end well.
Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. Keeping you informed and up to date. El Paso's News Radio. News on the hour KTSM. And a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio. I'm Brian Shook. Police confirm the suspect in today's mass shooting at a Texas elementary school is dead.
The suspect is deceased at this point. The suspect did act alone during this heinous crime.
The 18-year-old was also killed at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, an hour and a half west of San Antonio. 14 children and a teacher died after a shooting at the school. The alleged shooter reportedly also shot his grandmother before entering the school and opening fire. President Biden is ordering flags be lowered to half-staff in honor of the victims. He's also due to speak at 8:15 Eastern Time tonight. Primary elections are underway in states including Georgia, Alabama, and Arkansas. There's governor races in all three states as well. In Minnesota, there's also a special election to fill the seat of a late congressman. Recession fears are weighing on Wall Street. The tech-heavy NASDAQ lost more than 2%, while the Dow managed to turn higher in late trading for a positive close. Tech shares led the day's losses, with Snap plunging 40% after the company issued a profit warning. A new advisory from the CDC says patients who test positive for COVID-19 after taking Pfizer's antiviral pill need to re-isolate for 5 days. Lisa Taylor reports.
The agency says after that period, the individual should wear a mask for 10 days following the start of rebound symptoms. This comes after dozens of people reported a recurrence of symptoms after completing the 5-day Paxlovid treatment. Pfizer reports rebound infections are very rare. I'm Lisa Taylor.
President Biden is expected to sign an executive order on police reform tomorrow. That day marks the second anniversary of George Floyd's death in Minneapolis. Floyd was an unarmed black man who died while in police custody. Biden's order is reportedly aimed at boosting police accountability. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. The family of Jennifer Dulos is marking the third anniversary of the day she dropped her children off at school and was never seen again. While her husband, Fotis Dulos, was charged with murder and later took his own life, the Connecticut mom's body has not been found. Her family released a statement today saying they feel her immeasurable loss every day, but are comforted that her spirit can be seen in the 5 children she left behind. There are more signs the housing market may be starting to cool. Rory O'Neill reports.
Sales of new homes are tumbling as mortgage rates climb. The latest figures show a 16.6% drop in new home sales from March to April. Compared to last April, new home sales are down nearly 27%. The median sales price for these new homes just over $450,000. Builders also report they have a 9-month supply of new homes ready to sell. That number is typically closer to 6 months. I'm Rory O'Neill.
Governor Kathy Hochul says she'd like to revamp how New York handles its redistricting map process. Natalie Migliori explains.
It comes in the aftermath of this year's chaos when Democrat boundaries for congressional and Senate seats were rejected and a court-appointed special master was ordered to draw new lines.
The process played out the way the law was written. Do we need to do this differently? Yes, we do.
And what that entails?
What models have worked in other states? What is the best practice? Talk to people who've been involved in this and say, what went wrong here in the state of New York?
The independent drawings have delayed congressional primary elections until August 23rd.
A potentially hazardous asteroid is zooming past Earth this week. It measures just over a mile long, making it the largest asteroid to get relatively close to our planet this year. Although it's massive, there's no need to worry, as it will be 2.5 million miles away when it passes Earth on May 27th. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now, your chance to win $1,000.
Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Spring. That's spring. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples offers the latest laptops and networking solutions for working from home, in office, or both. And right now, save up to $260 on select PCs. In-store only. Offer ends 5/28. Limit 2 while supplies last. The latest tech solutions at Staples, the working and learning store.
On the podcast Paradise Lost, Crime in Miami, 2 South Florida natives examine their state's most notorious true crime cases. Each episode exposes the dark underbelly of the Sunshine State.
Beaches, nightlife, and tropical weather may be what folks think of when they think Florida. But as Miami natives, we like to say that South Florida is a sunny place for shady people.
Listen to Paradise Lost, Crime in Miami on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Rich is just a really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich, no. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media outlets we're on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. Dominating the news here today, and of course coming out of Texas, so getting a little bit further outside of what we normally discuss here. Of course, the shooting happening at the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, about an hour and a half west of San Antonio. A lot of commentary, of course, coming in on that situation. Now being confirmed that, 14 students and 1 teacher are dead after the shooting here. A question had come in earlier, so also from some of our news partners saying that some of the regional hospitals and other medical staff saying that at least one at Uvalde Memorial is quoted as saying that 16 people, including 11 children, were brought to the hospital after the shooting, at least a couple of them dead on arrival. So this is continuing to be a developing story. Some of our initial reports into our newsroom had indicated that there may have been a shooting before the fact here. It is being said by the governor that there were reports of the actual gunman having shot his grandmother ahead of it. He did not comment further on that. All we're getting at this point is that details surrounding how the incident started have not been made clear. There were some initial reports about the shootout having started outside of the school and then going inside of it. But again, we're waiting for more clarity on some of these issues here. So a lot more coming on this. And as Calvin Williams does point out in a way that President Biden showing respect for this program will start 15 minutes after the end of our show here. That is correct. President Biden expected to have an address at 6:15 Mountain Time, so just after this program. So stay tuned for, of course, updates on that and what is said there. Flags have been ordered at half staff as well. That already coming in. A picture actually out as of the start of this hour from Air Force One. Of course, President Biden traveling around the globe in and out of Japan today. Of a conversation he had on Air Force One with Texas Governor Greg Abbott, offering support and any resources needed here. RJ saying it's a shame that schools need to be put into a secure and protected protocol, but that's our new reality here. Guthrie Kodri saying teachers and security should be armed and ready to protect the children. I'll agree with security on the idea of that, having dedicated staff, even if like school resource officers, there's somewhat of a mixed bag there, because well, essentially, if you got a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And if you're not just focused on security, but crime prevention or crime prosecution, yeah, it is something that is difficult to deal with there. And there have been issues with that. I like the idea, again, of there actually being dedicated staff for that kind of thing, as opposed to foisting on more requirements on there. But as I've mentioned, we do have those phone lines open here. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We have Maria Coleman also commenting on, the Title 42 situation, saying, I did not appreciate local elected politicians speaking for everyone here. They announced El Paso residents did not want Abbott to initiate a response. If an emergency situation was announced, Escobar Samaniego and the mayor took it upon themselves to give the Rote Dem party response. So more conversation going on with this and a whole lot more. But let's go back to those phone lines again. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Well, another mass shooting in America, in the America that Trump failed to make great. So sad and so tragic. And I'll tell you what's not going to prevent the next one. Thoughts and prayers, enforcing the existing laws, and the good guy with a gun. And I'm glad I didn't have any kids. You know, parents can't feel safe about their kids at school. That's just horrible. It's unbelievable. Seems that these mass shootings are happening more often and becoming more violent also. One of your listeners suggested that I be hired to talk to the poor, desperate immigrants trying to get into the USA and dissuade them from coming to America. So here's that message. My message to my little mestizo brothers and sisters trying to get into the USA. Hey, I feel for you guys. How bad must it be for you to leave your family and homes to trek thousands of miles with kids to get into a country that definitely is much better than the one you're fleeing, but at the same time, a country where at least 1 out of 3 people do not want to see you here or any other poor, desperate people fleeing failed countries. But if you're willing to work, a capitalist will hire you. And there's a lot of poor people in America, poor kids and their mothers. In fact, 1 out of 3 of America's kids live in poverty. And America isn't and hasn't been great for most Americans for most of the history of the country, especially for people of color with a long history of discrimination and lack of equal opportunity and equal justice. And America is a deeply divided and violent country. Your kids, you or other innocent people could get killed by one of the crazy millions of Americans who hate you because in America they can get all the guns and ammo they want, especially easy in Texas. And the racist and xenophobic Americans think that you're here to replace them and cost them money. My mestizo brothers and sisters trying to get into the USA, like some of your countries, we recently had a failed coup. And the country could be on the verge of a civil war. Better get your own guns. You're coming into a country of tribes, of warring tribes that, like in your country, is owned and run by the rich and their purchased politicians. Yeah, you guys coming over, a bunch of you guys coming over time got 23 people killed in El Paso by a xenophobic, racist terrorist incited by the former president of the United States who planned and incited a failed coup and is now inciting a civil war. Now, I have a question for you, Andrew. Since you don't believe that Trump was responsible for the attack on the Capitol, don't you think at the very least he's guilty of violating his oath to the Constitution to defend and protect the country by his dereliction and desertion of duty by doing nothing for 3 hours while the attack was happening at the Capitol?
I mean, the question, to answer your specific question, they are covering a lot of ground here. Try to answer it as best we can here. On that point here, again, the part of the investigation I've been fully calling for this whole time is who knew what, when, why, how, all of that good, very basic stuff here, because that whole picture, I mean, there are still things coming out about this, even if it is coming out from the largely Democrat-led January 6th committee, that I am, again, very dubious about anything really substantive coming out of it, as opposed to a show. I think that's what it's going to come down to, because all the indications have been that this is going to be, well, among other things, what re-election hopes are going to be held on. That this is going to gear up right before the November election itself here. I mean, if they get it up before early voting, that would make the most sense. And going to be something that they're saying, and therefore that's why you have to vote for us. That's kind of the subtext I'm getting here, to which a good investigation is not really lent towards. So yeah, knowing what, who, why, when, how, who, those would be some very basic questions that I and a lot of other Americans would love to know about. I do think that probably the former president was playing with fire with some of his statements and may have gotten a bit burned here. But in terms of actually planning it and saying, okay, you go through that window, you attack this area, this is the office you need to go to. No, we're clearly not at that level from anything I have seen, even of the statements that have come out of this there. To some of your larger thing, the idea you're painting an incredibly dark picture of America here. And yes, on a day like today, it can be easy to wax more and more pessimistic or even nihilistic about what this means here. But the idea of there being tribalism in this country, and a more accurate term I think that you're probably going for there would be maybe balkanization. And I don't think we're near either of those, because even as we have some very serious issues to be dealt with in this country, I don't think we're anywhere near that. And I think there's more good people wanting to see this country to succeed and to live up of its promise. Sure, if you got issues with the whole MAGA phrase, whatever, that's your prerogative. The one that I find the most instructive is a more perfect union, because we are never going to be perfect. We are never going to have everything in place. There are always going to be new challenges, but it's going to take the everyday average citizens and, of course, the people that we elect to positions, to choose to be in leadership roles, to truly be able to handle it and challenge it and rise to the occasion. But we have done that for hundreds of years now. And to think that, well, it's all going to fall apart now because we know better about it. Really, the only situation I see, and it's interesting you mentioned the Civil War there as well, because we have literally been at blows over political differences in this country previously. Not even just the Civil War, but that's a pretty high watermark for level of violence and political differences. I don't think we're there, and I don't think we're going to get there. It is going to take a lot of people choosing to step away from the edge to get there. And heck, there might be global situations that end up impacting this and making a difference in what we have to deal with within this country, because even though our domestic politics can oftentimes be very much top of mind and very overwhelming, there's plenty of other things that, life continues. The world keeps spinning, and other things can and will continue to crop up here again, as looking at today. To your point about the idea of there being just devastation on the streets, it may seem life. It may seem like too cheap talk to talk about something like this today, but even in these situations, I still feel safe on the streets of anywhere. It is important to be maintaining of your own safety and security here. You can't really trust anyone else with it, but to say that this is a violent country, I don't think bears out. We are talking about the commission of a crime that happened today, various crimes. And I think you're coming down to essentially the political point of, therefore, if we get rid of all guns, this wouldn't happen at all. Sure, if you could wave a magic wand, make it so that no one has any deadly implements, there would still be people dying, but also feel the need at this point to point out that, again, questions about this specific crime are still in development, so I'm very hesitant to comment on this just yet. Literally, more things coming out as of this hour. But to say that, therefore, we have some specific actions we need to take right now, super premature. And, I will agree with you on this one point, the idea of thoughts and prayers and then nothing happening. I think a lot of people are done with that as well. Tell you what, we got to take that next break right now. We got calls on the line. We got more comments coming in, and we're going to get to all of those here coming out after this break. You are, of course, tuned in to Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso. You're on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On the 10 eastbound at Trans Mountain, watch for a crash that's off to the left. It's blocking the left shoulder. Multi-vehicle accident. 54 Patriot southbound at Sean Haggerty. Accident reported there and slowing. Expect a little backup. I-10 eastbound at Reynolds, stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. It's a large tractor trailer blocking the right side. 54 Patriot southbound at the 10. Accident reported there. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
It's $1,000 in your hand.
$1,000.
$1,000.
No NFTs or ESGs. It's $1,000 straight to you.
That is awesome.
Listen every hour from 9 through 5 weekdays for your chance to win.
A Grand in Your Hand is brought to you by Approved Auto. Ride out in your new ride in less than an hour. Get payments as low as $159 a month. Worried about your credit? Don't sweat it. If you got your license and you got a job, they smell a deal. The deals are sweeter at Approved Auto, 8498 Alameda.
This report is sponsored by Al-Anon Family Groups.
I found hope in the midst of an overwhelming situation.
Alcoholism can affect any family. Are you in an overwhelming situation because of someone else's drinking? Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Call 866-200-0033 or visit alanon.org/hope.
Wondering if the COVID vaccine is right for your child? If you can trust it? I'm Ernest Grant, President of the American Nurses Association, and we want you to know we trust the COVID vaccines for ourselves, for our patients, for our kids. So should you.
We can do this. Find a vaccine near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today. For good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Wouldn't it be great if life came with a remote control? You know, you could hit pause when you needed to, or hit rewind, like that time you knocked down that wasp's nest.
Uh-oh.
Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. With early diagnosis and a few healthy changes, you can stop prediabetes before it leads to type 2 diabetes. To learn your risk, take the 1-minute test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
Dear Dad, this year we're making Father's Day extra special with the Untuck It shirts that you love. Untuck It has the styles that'll make your summer great, from wrinkle-free shirts to performance polos and more. They're designed to be worn untucked, so you can always feel sharp even at your most casual. Father's Day is June 19th. If you still need a gift, check out the new summer styles at untuckit.com or one of 80-plus Untuck It stores. Use code DAD for 20% off your first purchase. Untuck It shirts, designed to be worn untucked.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to tune in and chime in on the show. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, and the other pages under similar names on YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch.tv. A lot of conversation going on these issues here. Again, the still developing situation coming out of Uvalde, Texas, and the shooting that happened there. Some more coming out even as of this hour right now. So former FBI agent Maureen O'Connell speaking with our news partner, saying that we're going to lot more about the suspected shooter soon. So while we're coming on that, a lot of comments on this as well. Catherine Codry saying criminals don't obey gun laws. Pat Mack with some questions about how we take and deal with calls here. James Ratcliffe commenting about cartels as well. Calvin Williams on Democrats in previous responses. Fred Marquez as well. Maria Coleman and Flaco Jimenez, a lot more. So tuning in and chiming there, John Brazelton as well. So if you want to do so over on our social media, more than welcome to. Also, that phone line open right now, full up at the moment, but you're welcome to get on the line here when the availability comes up. 915-544-5876. 915-544-KTSM. We have first on the line here, we have John over in Central with us right now. John, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Andrew.
Hello there.
Yeah, what happened over in Uvalde is horrible, and nobody wants that to happen. But I'd like to bring the conversation here to local.
Certainly.
I'd like to talk about the today's elections.
Absolutely. Another very important subject. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I also heard you, I think, between 4:30 and 5 earlier, and you were urging people to go out and vote.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, that's real good that you do that. And I also do that whenever with my friends' relatives. Okay.
Fantastic.
Now, I'm going to get to what happened to today.
Mm-hmm.
I voted at 8 o'clock. No problems, nobody there. And over Memorial at 10 o'clock, I went back there and just asked how many people had voted. 30 people. Then later on, around noontime, 90 people or so. Okay, just background information. Very, very few people are voting. Okay, at Memorial Park, senior citizen. Okay, this is the thing. My mom votes the mail-in. Okay, Yesterday we got a call saying that from the election office saying that her ballot was not accepted. And then I said, what can she do today? Next day, today. They said you can go and vote curbside. Okay. And I said, okay, we'll be doing that. And then this afternoon I took her there at 2:00 in the afternoon. I spent 45 minutes there with Mom in the car, wanting to vote, and she wasn't able to because the office, the clerk or the precinct chair at Memorial Park, she was in the dark about anything. Okay. Okay. What happened finally? That they wanted her to do a provisional ballot. There is no reason for her to do a provisional ballot when she and I asked over the phone at the election office. Her ballot was accepted in the March primary. For some reason, they told me the information was wrong on this ballot. That it wasn't accepted. Exactly the same information that was submitted in March was submitted in today. Was not acceptable. Now something is not right. Two things are either happening: incompetence over there at that office, or voter suppression. I'm not going to tell you which party she belongs to. Okay, what do you think about that?
I mean, this has been an issue going on. I mean, I know that's the stat I saw most recently for this spate of voting was that about 15% of ballots in El Paso County had been rejected. And to my understanding, not again knowing anything about your particular circumstance or the background on it, that the major issue for the majority of those cases comes down to a lack of matching information. Because basically, to the certification and qualification to do this mail-in ballot voting, you have to have an ID number. And it may not have been totally clear previously what kind of ID number, whether it would be a driver's license, social security number. So what essentially the local office anyway was saying is that if they don't match whatever it was used, as there are now new voter requirements based on the laws passed here in Texas, that if they don't match, they have to reject it and tell you that. So honestly, I know that the provisional ballot isn't ideal. Sure, go ahead.
I'm just going to say her ballot was accepted in March, and now today it was not accepted. Exactly the same information. No, nothing changed. So what happened there?
Again, I can say that's in the immediate situation because, yes, a fuller resolution may be necessary. Actually, I had a friend that, while living here, being a new resident of Texas, had an issue where they were not reflected on the local voting rolls, despite having completed their registration a month before, more than a month before the actual day of the election. That the provisional ballot is your day of solution, even if, it made it sound unsatisfying. That's literally what it's there for.
Okay, real quickly, just to cap right here. She has already told me, I'm not going to vote again. And because they give me so much trouble. So the city of El Paso, the county, has lost a voter. And that's what you don't want to happen, but it's happening. Okay? It's not voter apathy. It's because the precincts over there at Memorial Park, wherever, do not know what they're doing, or the office over there in the main office downtown, they're incompetent or they're doing voter suppression on one party, and you know which party that is. Okay, thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you very much for the point in the call. Very interested to know how that works out for you in the long run here. I know that this is a problem going on right now, and voter suppression has not come up much officially as part of this, but it's worth following up on. So, okay, for anyone else out there encountering anything similar today, the very important thing to keep in mind is that even if they're saying for some reason you cannot vote, that is literally why the provisional ballot is there. And that's one of the parts of the process that ends up taking quite a lot on the back end here. Because if you feel you're otherwise qualified to vote, but for some reason it seems that you may have already voted or something being registered wrong, anything of that, you can always, and I do mean always, ask for a provisional ballot. What will then happens then in the voter certification process, that is looked at, it is examined and reconciled. So you may even get further contact from the local elections department on that point here. James Radcliffe suggests you need to call the party chair or the elections at the county here. I think the caller there mentioned he had called it elections. But again, reaching out to a party, if you're particularly in a partisan election like this where the party is at issue, reaching out to them might not be a bad idea. But, I mean, we do have time constraints here. Polls open for about another hour and a half right now. Again, if you are in line at 7, you can demand that to be allowed to vote. If you show up at 7:01, that's on you. But if you're in line at 7, demand to be allowed to cast your ballot because you were in line and preparing to vote. Because even if you call it a line or not, it is possible for it to have been happening here. So again, demand a provisional ballot, demand to be able to vote, hold up your right to vote here. And I guess that is always the concern about, well, making it more difficult and frustrating for people. Are we going to lose voters? Which is something that I fully contend we cannot afford right now here. So I very greatly appreciate the point in the call, getting this information and situation out there. We got time for another call before we hit that next break right now. We do have Nate on the east side here with us right now. Nate, thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Andrew, and God bless you. Good evening. Good afternoon, El Paso and community. I just wanted to say there's so many topics that I could address right now from just general information and knowledge, but I'd like to address the letter that a gentleman read, what he had written or whatever the case may be, regards to why that a person shouldn't be in the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't go into great detail, but I can say this much. I've known a lot of people in my lifetime, only 67 years I've been on the earth. I've met people from all over the world. What I don't see, and I don't know if anybody have any different options, because people who come from these other countries, to include my ancestors, we don't come here and make a few bucks and then we say, let's go back to where we came from because it was much better. From the Vietnamese, from the Koreans, I could go on and on and on throughout, to include my ancestors who was enslaved and sent here from Africa. But the point I'm trying to make is that this is a great nation. And we contribute to it through our personal responsibilities. And I just want to say, if it was so horrible here, why would people keep coming? And with that being said, I just want to just ask everyone in El Paso, those that can, please come out and acknowledge the Decoration Day at the Fort Bliss National Cemetery at 8 a.m. on Saturday. And, of course, Memorial Day is celebrated at the same location here out on Fort Bliss National Cemetery on Monday. Okay, so you can look it up online. There will be some more information put out there. But come out and let's empower our community. Let's not corrode it. Thank you, Andrew, for the time. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Very appreciative of your point and your call there. And as you've mentioned previously, yeah, that happening Saturday, Fort Bliss Cemetery. You're all going to be gathering at 8 a.m., as you have mentioned. And that, of course, the cemetery itself here, 5200 Fred Wilson Avenue, essentially under Spur 601. So once you hit that exit there off of 54, it'll be a pretty quick trip there. So thank you for pointing the call. Greatly appreciate it. We got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more of the calls, more of the comments, more of everything we're discussing here today. Here with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. We'll get into it, keep the discussion going, and a whole lot more talk about all these things going on today, focus on the show, and affecting us here in the borderland after this break. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso. You're on News Radio 690 KTSM. May have noticed the new duo I'm sporting. Definitely went and got my ears lowered over at Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon and Men's Spa yesterday. Kept it a little bit shorter, cleaning it up. Got that warmer weather we are expecting. So particularly as I'm thinking about going out, traveling anywhere, going out on the motorcycle, anything like that, want to keep it a little slick down. Definitely got the had to get rid of the winter coat, so to speak, but they have a great set of services over there. And as I have mentioned, it is red beer season. Let me just tell you about my experience. Greeted right at the door with a delicious custom-made red beer mix that I really enjoyed there. Strength throughout all of my services here. Hair and beard expert styling. They also got a whole list of other ones out there, including a whole lot more than just a haircut and a shave. You can explore their services for the ultimate royal treatment and truly feel like a king for a day. And do not forget about Father's Day. You really want to have the dad or important dad in your life, well, treated like royalty. You got to get them over to Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon and Men's Spa. You can find them online at gentsrepublic.com. That's GENTS Republic.com, or give them a call at 915 915-532-3000. That's 915-532-3000. Tell them we sent you, and she'll get treated like a king for a day. Again, that's online at gentsrepublic.com, GENTSrepublic.com.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update. El Paso police are investigating a shooting that sent a man to the hospital. It happened on the east side, just blocks away from Hanks Middle School, just before 7 o'clock yesterday evening. Police say they haven't yet to ID a suspect in this shooting. The department tells us they do not believe there's a danger to the public and also believe this was an isolated incident. Police say they found 2 people dead in a northeast El Paso home. Officers made the discovery just before 6 o'clock yesterday evening at a home on Joel Drive near Diana and Dyer. Investigators say the men's deaths do not appear to be suspicious in nature. El Paso leaders are making moves to deal with migrant arrivals. City Council issued an emergency ordinance which will allow the city to hire and assign staff to work at migrant shelters. It also allows the city manager to approve contracts above $50,000 without council's approval for expenses related to housing migrants. I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
On the I-10 eastbound at Trans Mountain, watch for a crash that's off to the left involving a couple of vehicles. I-10 eastbound at Reynolds, a stalled tractor-trailer rig is blocking the right shoulder. 54 Patriot southbound at Sean Haggerty, an accident reported. Downtown on Stanton and 4th Avenue, an injury accident and a crash with injuries. Viscount eastbound at Shaver Drive. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. After a windy day, we can expect a windy evening to give way eventually to light winds overnight. Now, we are expecting to have temperatures similar again for your day on Wednesday, but with lighter winds as high pressure begins to build in. But on the flip side, as that high pressure gets closer to us come this weekend, we can also expect soaring temperatures and the return of triple digits with more winds to come.
This report is sponsored by Discover. With prices soaring at the pump, Discover has your back with cashback. Use Discover to earn 5% cash back at gas stations and Target now through June on up to $1,500 in purchases when you activate. Limitations apply. Learn more at discover.com/rewards.
Susan, I'm sorry I'm late. Traffic is terrible.
It sure is. But on top of that, gas prices have been skyrocketing. I can't believe how expensive gas has gotten recently.
Prices at the pump are up, but I never pay full price for gas anymore. I just use the free Upside app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Upside app?
Yes, I get real cash back every time I buy gas.
And does that actually add up to anything?
I've made around $200.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Upside app now.
Download the free Upside app now to earn real cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code GOLD for a $5 bonus on your first tank. That's promo code GOLD. You can cash out anytime right to your bank account, to PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code GOLD for a $5 bonus on your first tank. That's code GOLD for a $5 bonus.
Finding a great hire can be a challenge. That's why there's Indeed. Their powerful hiring platform makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply. This report is sponsored by Indeed.com.
Stay tuned and stay informed with News Radio 690 KTSM, an iHeart radio station.
Text and whatever. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app. Lots we're working on getting through here today, as there is a whole lot more coming in, even as of this hour. Email just into our newsroom here from Governor Greg Abbott, also on some of these issues here. And as was mentioned, over in the comments as well, over on our social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. 18 children and 2 adults now confirmed dead, and the shooter in that shooting happening in Uvalde, Texas at Robb Elementary here. So, of course, stay tuned with us on air for the updates, as well as over on our website, ktsmradio.com, for the latest there. But getting back to those phone lines right now, well, a couple more comments I want to mention here. That about the voting here, because interesting comment there from our last callers here. But Kevin Williams saying you're able to go out and vote and are upset because they didn't accept your mail-in ballot, and the person at the site doesn't understand you were told your ballot wasn't accepted. Mail-in ballot should only be for those out of the state here. I mean, there are some specific restrictions and availabilities on who can use the mail-in ballot here. Calvin Williams saying disabled and still able to vote curbside, no mail-in ballot. I mean, I have voted mail-in ballot one time, and it was while I was out of state here. I was actually during the time I was in Washington, D.C., doing a journalism fellowship, and did do that. And it was a little weird, I will agree, the idea of just sending off your ballot and there being no confirmation. I never got anything back, so I just kind of hoped my ballot got accepted at that point. That is one of the parts that was supposed to be a part of this new law, and among other things, why, for our previous caller, local office probably actually contacted you directly to let you know that there was an issue, because there is more confirmation involved with it. Again, provisional ballots, I know it may be unsatisfying, but that's the day of solution. And yeah, definitely follow up with your party chair, your precinct chair, etc., and make sure that that is ironed out for the future here. But let's get back to those phone lines right now, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. We do have Rick in the Sacramento Mountains here with us right now. Rick, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew. Hope you're doing well. And again, love your venue, this format for everyone. I wanted to address a few of the things. First, that last caller, and the 15%. We all are aware that El Paso is Democrat run. So, 15% that are returned and 90% Republican. That gentleman that called, he wanted to leave out which party he was, because Republicans are reserved. We have morals. So he wanted to be quiet about it. And he said, you probably know which one. And, we all know. So what happens is, doing here, Democrats, I got to get that right, Democrat-run city, you're going to have, yes, voter suppression. Biden's people are in full effect now. Any voting, that's going to happen. That's just the way it is to me. We got to accept it. That's it. So that's with that. And we just got to be aware. I want to put awareness of truth here. And then off to the thing about the insurrection. No person has been convicted, because that's an incorrect word. No weapons were used. The only person that died was a woman from a federal agent. No one died that day. Later, our line president puts the words, 5 officers have died since the insurrection. Not that day. They throw the play of words and make things. Everybody's got to research, so they see that I'm speaking awareness of truth. No one died that day. I believed, that extinguisher thing, that wound up to be all fake. All officer died, but days later, and for some other reason, I don't know why. Anyhow, wanted to answer that right there. Then on to what happened in El Paso. That gentleman that did that horrible thing to our people, the 23 that have passed now, that gentleman hated Trump. That gentleman was a Democrat. It shows like Scalise in the baseball field, that was a Democrat. He was all for Bernie. You find the violent, pro-death are Democrats. You'll just find that. So Mr. Raul saying all these things, the word insurrection isn't even correct. It was a riot. That's it. Nobody had weapons. Nobody killed, shoot. So that's clarified on that. And his rhetoric and the speaking with very anger. This America is separated. Well, you're separating it, brother. That kind of talk, angry and Trump said insulting things, but the other people, everybody creates their insults. Pocahontas lady, she lied. I call it Hyena Harris. She's always laughing. Give me a break. You got to have some kind of composure, self-awareness. So again, I just wanted to bring these issues that I wanted to bring it right to Mr. Raul, the way he speaks, the way his presentation is, loss of self-awareness. I still have yet to hear someone say, "Oh, I agree with that, Mr. Raul." You know, he's unaware. Like 90% of the Democrats are unaware. They're in a psychosis. They're unaware of their own actions, of their own detrimental hate for the society and for how things are, and the blaming. Do something and give solutions instead of pointing finger.
I mean, yeah, being proactive is something that is often a little bit lacking in both, well, political rhetoric, but also then in our actual politicians here. I'll agree with you on the idea of, I mean, words have meanings, and find it much more accurate to call, what happened on January 6th as a riot. I mean, riots are still a crime, make no mistake here, but the way it came about and the way that it was fomented and formed, riot seems to be the more accurate phrase to my mind here, because yes, the Capitol was still breached. A crime still definitely occurred, and the prosecution should probably continue apace. But again, the investigations that come along with that are also almost as important for how it happened and how it went through there. So appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there as well. We're going to get to at least squeeze in a couple more calls here. We do have Kevin on the east side here with us right now. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate it. I'd like to refer to the massacre down there in Uvalde, Texas.
Absolutely.
I'd just like to say that in all of the commentators, perhaps yourself an exception to that, and all the people who have either called up or have been interviewed on the television, I have not heard. Now, I can't watch all of the TV stations, listen to all of the radio, but from what I heard, and it was a considerable amount of time, I don't hear any mention of bringing this country back to God so that we are a God-fearing country. In our national anthem, one of the stanzas says that this be our motto: in God is our trust, and on our money we have the same phrase, in God we trust. The people, especially in school now, don't get that reinforcement of what they should be learning at home and in their churches or synagogues, that God is the item that we cannot leave out from our discussions and from our hearts. And I wish that was more brought up, and I wish this was a more religious country, relying on either their own set of precepts or the Ten Commandments, and saying, okay, God is in charge, and trying to settle these problems such as this massacre without calling on the aid of God all over is futile, in my opinion.
Certainly entitled to your opinion on that. Let me just say, I'll disagree with you on one point, the idea of it being fomented in schools, and not necessarily because it shouldn't be talked about there. I mean, I attended Bible study classes as a school clubs here. So the idea of it being completely divorced from the whole building, as is often talked about, that's fallacious on its own basis here. But what I will say that I find myself disagreeing with the idea that this should be the locus of it, that this should be where it stems from, because as you did further mention there, learning it in your own, from your family values, from your church, from your community, that's where this should be instilled. But I feel like that is what is failing for the most part here. I mean, people, talk about, God removed from schools, and that's the problem. Sure, but what was then done to then do it in your own personal life? Because if it was only being expected to be taught in centers of government education, that I think is the real issue here. Because if people then are doing it in their own lives, expecting, we pack them up and we send them off and they'll deal with all their needs, I think that's more than a little bit of why we're in not even just this situation, but in a general situation, the idea that everything will be taken care of, and the entire idea, and there are more than a few people that disagree with it, but I'm concerned that there's more than the majority of people that do agree with it, that, if the government says it, and therefore if they say yes or no to it, that's all I really need. And that level of thinking I find just incredibly problematic for us going forth as a country, as a nation, as a society. So that's the only finer point I'll disagree with you on, because I almost don't think, to rely on it from that focus here is a problem, but I will fully agree with you on the idea that there needs to be, moral instruction still needs to be a focus of our life, but I would not rely on any institution besides those that you willingly participate in, the ones that you choose to go to because they focus on such things to do so.
I agree with that. What I'm trying to say, and I perhaps didn't phrase it correctly, is the country today, when you compare it to back in the 1950s or early 1960s, is not the same because we don't have the fear of God doing something. The police can do things, the courts can do things, but when a little kid learns at home and it's reinforced in his community, church or otherwise, that, this is punishment that we're going to give you, but later on, when God gets a hold of you, it's going to be even worse. And I think that puts the fear of God into people as well as the love of God. And I don't see that so much in these days as I used to see it in the 1950s. That's all I got to say.
No, okay. No, certainly get your point there and appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one.
Thank you. You too, Andrew.
Society has certainly changed since the 1950s, if you want to put it as that specific a focus on it here. But the real issue, I guess, I see is that people they've divested themselves of the requirement to focus on these things, thinking like, well, someone else will take care of it, the government, whatever, writ large. So I'm not necessarily accusing you of doing that, but I think more people are. And I think that's a real issue that comes out of it, because strictly speaking, the events of today, among other things, were always possible. In fact, were more possible back in the day when there were literally fully automatic weapons available on in stores. Walk into your, favorite hardware store and get it. And so what has changed since then? Because, well, I think there's two things. A, demographics are different. One thing I keep in back of my mind is the fact that, there's twice as many people, not even just in this country, but on this planet as there were when JFK was alive, more than double nowadays. Actually, that's a stat from 10 years ago, and it's only increased. We're on this kind of mildly exponential growth scale for population even now. And so these absolute incidents may have happened off and on in the past are now, well, since we know of all of them, it seems like it's an absolute increase, and it is, but it is also to a certain extent proportional, but also the thought that goes into it. Mental health has been brought up by some as well, is a very important part of it. And the lack of focus on that, I guess, if you want to talk about loss of religion, that as we have an increasingly agnostic population, stats bear that out for the most part. Not majority in a lot of places, but in some places it is, and not necessarily fully atheist either, but saying that they are not sure and they don't have strong beliefs. That has not necessarily been replaced by anything else. The community, the moral instruction. There are certain tenets that I think any man of any race, any creed, any belief system can agree on, men writ large as mankind in this sense of the use of the word. But the idea of there not being any replacement for it, I think, is more than a little bit of why we are in, some of the larger situations we are. Got time for another quick call. Here we do have Mike over in Central here with us. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. How are you doing today?
Doing all right there. What's on your mind?
Well, I just left the Memorial Park voting of the precinct.
Mm-hmm.
I want to address what the gentleman said a few calls ago, that his family member was having trouble voting over there. And then he brought up voter suppression, and he kept intimating that one party was suppressing the other. And I found them to be courteous and professional. They're very nice.
Okay. The concerns about this, I get it from our previous caller, but the experience I have had when dealing with the voting staff here has been more along the lines of what you're talking about. But what I will say is this, that if there is anything like that going on, it needs to be fully looked at. But that also, again, the day of solution is the provisional ballot, which I do hope that his family member did increase. Another commenter, Todd Fisk, over on the social media, saying that today, while I was voting at Sunland Park Mall, a lady walked in and asked for assistance for a person in her car for her curbside voting. That was also available at the location I was. So even if it didn't work, even if there are issues, yes, provisional ballot is the day of remedy. But then also there are other methods and other availabilities if you have access to them.
Exactly, and provisional ballot is nothing wrong with that. It's what you do if there's any uncertainty, and that gives the person an opportunity to vote. But I also want to speak to a larger issue here, is that you provide a forum for the city which is excellent. Many people can call in, but that's a serious accusation to say that people at a certain precinct were engaging in voter suppression.
Mm-hmm.
That's a serious thing. Take it up with the party or call the elections administrator, but don't just put it out there on a public forum that these people are doing, something very serious, because there's no proof of it. And it's not even my regular precinct. I vote there when my regular precinct is closed, which it is right now. And I had no trouble. They were fine and professional. And I won't say what party I voted in, but, I don't know what he was talking about. There was nobody suppressing anybody. They were all nice.
Fair enough here. Well, yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for your perspective in the call there. Appreciate it.
Have a good day.
Oh, you too as well. Tell you what, we got to take that last break right now. Come out, tell you what we got coming up for you on the show. Squeeze in what we can. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. A lot of comments, a lot of calls. Squeezing out what we can before we close out the show here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Loop 375 at Sergeant Major. There's a stalled vehicle that's blocking the right shoulder. I-10 eastbound at Reynolds. A stalled tractor-trailer rig is blocking the right side. Downtown Stanton Street, south of Paisano on 4th Avenue. An injury accident there with police on the scene. Take South Campbell Street instead. And Viscount Boulevard eastbound before Montwood. Another injury accident with paramedics on the scene. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is paid for by NHTSA. No one close to you should have to endure the dreaded knock on the door from a police officer who must tell your loved one that you were killed in a car crash because you weren't wearing your seatbelt. So please, don't risk it. And remember, click it or ticket. Paid for by NHTSA.
If you're 45 or older, this message could save your life. Health experts now recommend starting regular colorectal cancer screening at age 45. Colorectal cancer is the leading cause of cancer death, but it's preventable through regular screening. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. You've got the guts to prevent colorectal cancer. Talk to your doctor about your options and visit cdc.gov/screenforlife for more information.
Wouldn't it be great if life came with a remote control? You could hit pause when you needed to, or hit rewind, like that time you knocked down that wasp's nest. Uh-oh. Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. With early diagnosis and a few healthy changes, you can stop prediabetes before it leads to type 2 diabetes. To learn your risk, take the 1-minute test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
Dear Dad, this year we're making Father's Day extra special with the Untuck It shirts that you love. Untuck It has the styles that'll make your summer great, from wrinkle-free shirts to performance polos and more. They're designed to be worn untucked, so you can always feel sharp even at your most casual. Father's Day is June 19th. If you still need a gift, check out the new summer styles at untuckit.com or one of 80-plus Untuck It stores. Use code DAD for 20% off your first purchase. Untuck It shirts, designed to be worn untucked.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Some of the more things we got coming up for you rest of this week. Of course, we'll be talking with our news partners over at KFOX 14, as Stephania Seifert, investigative reporter there, about some of her recent work. And of course, further stuff. I'm sure we'll have more discussion about the city manager contract, since she's been delving into that, but also her current stuff here. Again, stay tuned online and for the news updates on our air here for the latest coming out of the entire situation in Uvalde. And again, you can leave us calls, comments after the show, the pound 250 system. We got one of those for you right now, as well as the other calls here. So again, if you want to leave us a message on pound 250, you just dial that on your phone, say the keyword Talk El Paso when prompted, and leave us a message much like this.
You cannot be serious. I just heard that guy that just called. Yeah, denigrating my comment about Liz Cheney winning the JFK Profiles of Courage, and he's got to denigrate that. He's got to make it less than what it really is, and he goes off the wall. She won that award straight out because she's a solid United States of America woman, and brilliant, and beautiful hair, and blue eyes. And anybody out there saying anything less, get on what the hell you're talking about. You're a moron.
Yeah, and interesting political positions to decide on someone. Therefore, again, pound 250 keyword Talk El Paso. If you want to leave your own message that way, I think we can squeeze in one more quick one. We do have Johnny in Central. Johnny, we got about 30 seconds.
Sure. Yes, there is someone here who supports Raul. I do. Secondly, I'm upset over our governor because he made it easy for the people to carry weapons. I'm a gun owner myself, but I did everything right. I took tests. I did the background check, and I'm proud. It disappoints me that anyone now can go buy a weapon and just walk around and just kill people. So Ted Cruz, he is very, very unsympathetic. That's Christopher Murphy was more sympathetic to the killing of our citizens than he was. He, being an NRA supporter, I'm quite sure, I'm talking about Cruz, is very, very disappointing, him and Abbott.
Okay, well, we'll certainly get into that more on future shows here. We're out of time here for this one, so I want to thank everyone who did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. We'll do it again tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles out on the road. Have a great evening, y'all. We'll see y'all tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Loop 375 at Sergeant Major. There's a stalled vehicle that's blocking the right shoulder. I-10 eastbound at Reynolds. Stalled tractor trailer rig is blocking the right side. Downtown Stanton Street, south of Paisano on 4th Avenue. An injury accident there with police on the scene. Take South Campbell Street instead. And Viscount Boulevard eastbound before Montwood. Another injury accident with paramedics on the scene. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. 18 children and 3 adults are dead after a gunman entered an elementary school in South Texas today. Governor Greg Abbott confirmed it happened at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, an hour and a half west of San Antonio. Abbott also confirmed the shooter is dead after he was gunned down by responding police officers. Former San Antonio Mayor Julian Castro says Uvalde is your typical small-town community.
Uvalde is a tight-knit community, a place of a lot of hardworking folks, folks who know each other.
President Biden is ordering flags be lowered to half-staff in honor of the victims. They'll fly at half-staff until sunset on Saturday. Biden is also due to speak at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. The FTC is investigating the nationwide baby formula shortage. The inquiry will determine if there are any deceptive, fraudulent, or otherwise unfair business practices taking advantage of families. This includes price gouging or other illegal tactics. The FBI is admitting agents thought its probe into possible links between Russia and Donald Trump started with the Justice Department rather than from Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. Lisa Taylor reports.
That testimony came from an agent already under scrutiny in a trial involving a Clinton campaign lawyer accused of lying to the FBI. Prosecutors say Michael Sussman failed to disclose he was working for the Clintons' 2016 presidential campaign when he told the FBI he had evidence of a Russian link to former President Trump. Testifying on the stand, the agent said the alleged evidence provided to agents was accidentally mislabeled as coming from the DOJ and not from Sussman.
Over 200 decomposing bodies were found in an apartment building basement in Mariupol. A mayoral advisor said that locals refused Russian demands to grab